Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 117. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, I can sort of kind of breathe again. We got Steelers draft talk to talk about, maybe even a little more Aaron Rodgers. The Pirates continue to be embarrassing on and off the field. Everything is returning to normal. So glad to be back. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great. Alex Kozora, you're sounding like Alex Kozora more and more by the day. So that's good. Good to hear in my head right now. And yeah, we've got a lot of different interesting things to talk about. I know you're counting down the hours for the big night out that Pat McAfee has in Pittsburgh later this evening. I know a lot of people are still speculating that there might be an Aaron Rodgers decision announced during that. The sense that I don't know, Kabali and even the McAfee show itself has kind of played down that thing. I'll be surprised if we get an Aaron Rodgers decision. I don't know if he'll be a guest on the show or what, but it'll be something that I know that we'll tune into just in case and all. But we do have other kind of quarterback news to discuss today. We've got a contract to discuss. Dane Brugler dropped the 2025 version of the Beast today. So we'll talk about a few things related to that. Alex Kozora has a new mock draft we'll discuss and few other things. So happy Wednesday, everybody.
People liked my last mock draft, and I shouldn't have gotten used to the feeling because the natives are restless about this one, Dave, on my mock. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's start, though, with the big headline news that came out yesterday afternoon. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, widely viewed to be the second best quarterback in this year's draft, will be coming to Pittsburgh on Thursday for a pre-draft visit. Once viewed as a top 3 selection, even potential number 1 overall pick, that will no longer be the case, and it seems like there is a realistic and plausible chance that Sanders gets past the top 5. If he gets past the Saints at 9, people will hone in and zero in on Pittsburgh at number 21. So this interest in Sanders seems real, and the interest in quarterback at large seems obviously real, Dave.
All right, let's try to circle this thing from several different. Let's take this thing out of the box and fully examine it from all perspectives, if you will. First and foremost, every player that comes in for a pre-draft visit does not get drafted. That's a Captain Obvious statement there.
We'll not draft 30 players this year.
Right. At least I don't think so. I don't like to speak in guarantees, but I can almost guarantee you they will not draft 30 players this year. They have different reasons, for bringing in certain guys for visits. Obviously, some of those guys, a few of them on the list, will probably ultimately be drafted. Some guys they just want to do extra homework on. Some guys end up circling back to this team 4 years down the road, 3 years down the road, or whatever in free agency in some way, shape, or form. Some guys end up in division. This could be a multi-tiered kind of visit when it comes to. They probably set a couple aside late in the process to let's bring him in. Sanders, as you mentioned, widely, at least through the early part of this process, viewed as a top 3, top 6 type of guy. Obviously, been regarded by most as maybe the second potential quarterback off the board when it comes to this year's draft class. we had the exercise a couple of times of going through and looking at the teams that could potentially draft a quarterback in the first round. There's just a handful of those. I think the big thing with Sanders, if he were not to be taken in those first 3 picks, would be, I guess, the Raiders next, and then the Saints at whatever that is, I think 9th overall with them. And then if he were to fall out of the top 9 picks, there's a very good shot, barring a team trading up ahead of the Steelers at 21, that Shedeur Sanders would be could potentially be on the board. And when you're talking about a team such as the Steelers, who look like they've been doing some diligent work at the quarterback position when it comes to this year's draft class, you have to set yourself up to at least make a very, very educated and thought out decision of whether or not you would take him there. So I think, and then on top of it, look, this is a guy that could very easily go to the Browns at number 2, right? And be in your division, be a guy that you have to play against for the next several years. So why wouldn't you maybe like to bring him in and see what makes him tick and get to know him a little bit more than you, and they probably, look, they're not new to Shedeur Sanders. I'm sure they've scouted him quite a bit. I'm sure scouts and all have talked to him. I'm sure probably Mike Tomlin's had conversations with him somewhere or somehow throughout maybe the process and all. But you better know the guy if you are maybe remotely considering drafting him in the first round of the draft and being tied to him for at least the next couple of years, should you decide to ultimately take him. So I know it sent kind of shockwaves through the Steeler fans and all, and I know we'll get a little bit more into kind of the pushback, both pros and cons, of him coming in for a visit and the Steelers potentially draft him at 21. But I think that's the first and foremost overview, or taking this thing out of the box and looking at it with Shedeur Sanders coming in on, I think, Thursday, right?
Yes, Thursday is the reported date for Shedeur Sanders. He'll visit the Raiders next Monday, and that might be his last stop, but a couple of visits for him coming up. Do you think this is more of a last-second thought by Pittsburgh, maybe realizing this guy might slide and no longer be the top 3 lock he felt probably throughout the first half of this pre-draft process, where it felt like he's going to go to the Giants at 3 or the Browns at 2, or very early on was still competing with Cam Ward for that number 1 spot to Tennessee? Is this Pittsburgh trying to take advantage of a potential opportunity, or is this just keeping the knife sharp to evaluate quarterbacks for future years? There are some, at least, mixed messages with Shedeur Sanders, because Pittsburgh, as far as we can tell, did not have really heavy representation at that Colorado showcase. It was just a couple days ago. As far as we know, only senior scout Kelvin Fisher was at that workout where Shedeur Sanders threw. So it might be a little hard to parse, but I just look at all the quarterback interest and sit there and say, even if it's not Sanders, it's hard to envision this team, really it's getting harder to envision this team not taking quarterback, given all the homework they've done on virtually all the top names, Cam Ward aside.
Well, it's obviously hard to answer the question, was this planned? Is this well, there's a chance he might, we just don't know the answer to that overall. I do think that just you want to get to know as much about some of the quarterbacks in this class, just as more of a comparison thing than anything. And yes, the way they paid attention to guys in this class, maybe not as close to as they did a couple of years ago, but on a similar plane. I mean, they've been to a lot of pro days where some of these quarterbacks have been, talking about Mike Tomlin, at the very least, and some of those stops, Omar Khan. It's hard to answer that question. Is this something that, hey, we like to hold back a couple of these visits just in case, something transpires, and maybe they do think that there's a decent chance that he that are not decent, but a chance that he falls down to them at 21, and how would they react? And maybe they had a couple of more questions they had. Maybe there's some sort of injury thing they just had to double check on. Even though there's really been, I don't think anything reported on him. Maybe one just check where his head's at, and maybe they just are curious about him potentially landing with the Browns or something and want to get inside of his head. It's impossible to know the reason behind why he's coming. But I think to the root of what you're maybe trying to say there is this team has paid attention to this draft class at the quarterback position. It does feel like somewhere within the first 4 rounds of this draft, the Steelers will draft a quarterback. And I don't think you can entirely rule out the possibility of them taking one at 21 overall, especially if a guy like Sanders was to fall to them.
Agreed. I think that's probably the better conversation to have about just quarterback at large rather than me trying to figure out why the interest in Sanders did that come about more last second and what's the origin there. It's just really hard, Dave. And it's always tough with quarterbacks to know where these guys are going to go, what their draft stock truly is, outside of Cam Ward going first overall to the Titans, which you can basically write in pen. I really have no idea when and where these other quarterbacks are going to go. Sanders, really have no idea day one, but that's about it. Where does Dart go? Is he day one? Same with Milrow. Where does Shuck fall in? It's really, really murky.
Yeah, personally, where I still sit, and even with the news of the Steelers bringing in Sanders, my gut tells me he's going to be off the board before 21, and probably by 9 to the Saints. But I mean, if he does it like we said, or like we did in the exercise, who what team would draft him? After if the Saints bypass him at 9. There's a long gap of teams that we covered that seem to be set at quarterback. Now, could a team obviously trade back up ahead of the Steelers at 21? Possibly, I suppose, especially if it's one of those teams like the Browns or the Giants, if they bypassed on Sanders at at 2 or 3 or whatnot. You're right. It is hard to say. I still feel though that he will be off the board by the Saints pick.
Fair. I think that's totally fair. And even as you said, if he gets past 9, I think the odds are somebody probably trades up by the time before 21 rolls around, where someone will see that opportunity and want to make that move for this top 2 quarterback in a class where there probably is a good drop off from the first 2 quarterbacks to the rest of the class. So, how do you feel about Sanders as a prospect in particular? Haven't talked about him too much. I don't know. We both may need to do some more homework on that. I don't know what all you've done in terms of scouting Shedeur Sanders. We have the report up on him on the site that we wrote earlier this year. Where do you personally come in on Sanders as a prospect?
Well, let's form the conversation about that, and should the Steelers take Shedeur Sanders if he's there at 21?
Okay. What do you think?
Well, you are a team in search of a franchise quarterback, right? And I know this class overall at the quarterback position is not great, but what all do we really know about the 2026 quarterback class right now? A lot of people, the buzz about Arch Manning and all, but is he? I mean, this is a kid in Arch Manning that's started very few college games so far, played minimally so far in college. There are some questions about, will he even come out after next year? And what does the quarterback class really look like this far out? And how many guarantees can you make about the 2026 quarterback class before before the season even gets underway?
Sure. There's no guarantees you can make. You have some projections, and it's viewed as a better class than probably where 2025 sits, but you never know what could happen. Guys emerge, guys falter. When Joe Burrow, going into his last year at LSU, he was not on anyone's radar as the number 1 overall pick, has an amazing season, becomes the guy. And you've seen the inverse where that can't miss quarterback completely falters and is no longer viewed as a first round prospect. So, I mean, the short answer is you can project, but there's no assurances to come with a future draft class.
All right. And until you have a young drafted franchise quarterback, you don't have a young franchise drafted quarterback, right?
Right. And if you don't, then you're searching for that young franchise quarterback.
And at some point, you're going to have to take a swing in the draft on a young drafted quarterback, and preferably probably within the first 3 rounds, right?
Yes, and as I've said, first round quarterback is the way to get out of Pittsburgh's purgatory. Again, no guarantees with that, but that is how Pittsburgh, if they hit on that prospect, will eventually move forward as a franchise. That's going to be the requirement.
All right. As far as it goes, where the pushback, I mean, this is not scientific by any means, based on my Twitter responses and all, but it seems about half and half. I put out there, if Sanders falls to 21, should the Steelers take him? I got some yeses, I got some nos, I got some definitive nos, I got some definitive yeses. I got a few. I'm not thrilled with it, but you almost have to take them kind of responses within that. Here's the fear. Well, several fears I think that are within the heads of fans of Steelers, of the Steelers, is uh the guy's attitude. Prima donna kind of like guy, very confident. Obviously, Dad Deion Sanders. How much distraction is going to come up? Some people just don't like the person. Would you agree?
Sure, I think the view is, yeah, essentially that the Sanders name, a little bit of that Sanders personality, where you kind of love him or hate him, not always a lot of in between there.
Some people don't like the play, on the tape, and that's fine as well too. But that's some of the pushback. Some people don't like the class and saying this is not a great class. They should wait until next year, because the class is likely to be better. And I have not even looked at the class other than just knowing who Arch Manning is, beyond this year. Uh, and then there's the concern of, okay, if I'm okay with going this route, it's going to take probably at least 20 games to find out, is he a franchise quarterback, and what if he's not, and how about the time that you lose within that you remain in quarterback purgatory? Well, you're going to remain in quarterback purgatory until you're not in quarterback purgatory. And whether it's this year or next year, you draft a quarterback, there's still a percent chance, and probably a higher one than most like to hear, that this guy's not going to be the guy to play the next 12, 13 years in Pittsburgh and be the franchise quarterback. So at some point, though, you've got to take a swing at the position. And if you're okay with the tape, and you're okay with the upside and how you can develop them, and you're okay with the player overall, then at some point you've got to take a swing on one of these guys, and probably in the first round. So the tape overall is okay. I would still rate him probably as the second quarterback in this year's class. I think he's a pocket passer. I think he a lot of there's a percent, he's got a high percentage of throws that are at or behind the line of scrimmage, so to speak, but he can sling the football. I think there's concerns about his arm strength potentially, and maybe a place that gets cold later on in the season. How will he be able to play in a city where he's having to deal with cold weather?
Well, I mean, Colorado gets pretty
Yeah,
cold. I
yeah,
think that.
sure. But I mean, I think at the NFL level, just people are kind of concerned. Oh, have some concerns about that. Just concerned about his overall maybe arm strength. I think the accuracy's there with him overall. I think he's able to make plays out of structure. I think we saw plenty of those. Overall, I have him as a second-rated quarterback in this class. So if a guy like that was to fall to you, and you are a franchise needy quarterback needy team, I think you really have to consider taking him there at 21.
Yeah, it's certainly to me a whole lot more attractive than a Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart or something like that, where I think those guys have further to go and maybe lack some of the standout traits that those top quarterbacks have. I think Sanders' accuracy, um, does stand out, where it's probably one of his calling cards. I think there's toughness in the pocket as well, some ability to create, and so I need to dig into him probably a little bit more here. Maybe we'll talk about him more for Fridays or Monday's show, but there's an opportunity there to get a quarterback that was once viewed as a top 3 prospect, and maybe if he slips for whatever reason, you like that prospect a whole lot more than maybe reaching for that guy that's a Milroe borderline first round type of a guy, but just take him in the first round, just wanting to get a quarterback and not having that second round pick and feeling like you have to. So, I get the concerns there. Still valid questions over, is he a true franchise guy or not? But I think you have to at least explore the opportunity, and if it doesn't require a trade up, and even if he falls into your lap, it is pretty hard to ignore that opportunity, that number 2 quarterback falling to you all the way at 21.
What if you're the Steelers and you are sold on if you've done you've well, they have done their homework, not if. If your homework says, "Look, this is a first round quarterback. This is a guy that could potentially be a franchise quarterback," and he checks that box for you, and he checks the box as far as the hearts and the smarts, and can be a Steeler and yada, all the things that go along with that. And you say, okay, if we are on board with him potentially being our next franchise quarterback, and he drops out of the top 9, and he drops closer to you, let's say within 2 or 3 picks, and you've decided that this could be your guy, and he gets within 2 or 3 picks within you, then why wouldn't you trade up and go get him?
Yeah, if you have conviction about the guy, then it's going to be worth it. If that cost might be heavy, but if it's a franchise quarterback that you believe can change your franchise for the next decade plus, then sure, it's worth it. Now, you still have to understand what that cost exactly is. But if there's a guy that you love at quarterback, then no one thinks about what the Chiefs gave up to trade for Patrick Mahomes, what the Bills gave up to draft for Josh Allen, the Ravens for Lamar Jackson. Those are the ones I always cite when I talk about teams that weren't terrible that still came away and aggressively pursued first round quarterbacks and won because of it. So if if you love the guy, then it's worth it.
I guess what I'm getting at is either you're on board with him or you're not. And if you're a quarterback needy team, you know, are you okay with saying, sitting there with your fingers crossed in the draft war room, thinking, "Oh, I hope nobody trades up ahead of us and goes gets him, because boy, we really do like him," right? In other words, or is there such thing of having a mentality of, well, if he slips that far to 3, 4, 5 space, however, uh, wherever becomes cost effective to go up and get him, you know, is that a could that be a mindset?
Well, it technically was with Kenny Pickett. I know there was some attempt to trade up during that draft, but ultimately Pittsburgh did not, and they just let Pickett fall to Pittsburgh. So there may be a question of, do we have to trade up for this guy? If we don't get the sense we need to trade up for this guy, and you work the phones and you have a good sense of what teams are trying to do, then, if you can get him at 21 without having to trade up, then why trade up? The other question
Is that a good mentality to have, though, from the second half of the first round on, when it comes to such an important, the most important position in football, to be, well, we really like him, but we really think he can be a franchise quarterback, but we're just going to sit and wait for it.
Sure.
Kenny Pickett's a perfect example of that. Should if the team was that enthralled and had a first round grade on Kenny Pickett and thought he could be a guy, then why sit there and wait for him to come to you?
Sure, but if you are confident you don't have to trade up to get him, then why trade up to get him?
But is there any guarantees when it comes to that?
No, no guarantees. No, but I mean, you could put it on the other. I was going to ask you a different question. Okay, let's say you love the guy. Let's say Pittsburgh is sold on Shedeur Sanders. Why not trade up to 8 and jump the Saints?
Sure. Sure, I get it.
So, I mean, you could really logically play this thing out a million different ways in terms of what shows conviction for a quarterback.
Right. Do you think they have conviction about Shedeur Sanders?
I don't know. I don't know. It's feeling like they have conviction about taking a quarterback, but who and when and where are different questions, more
You
important questions.
you see where I'm getting. I know you understand where I'm getting at though. But
Mhm.
if is it okay? Well, he's there, best available on the board. It just so happens to be the quarterback position. We'll take him at 21.
Yeah, I get the whole idea of like, say it with your chest. If you're going to take a quarterback, we love this guy. We're going to go up there, aggressively pursue him. I understand that. Yes.
And hasn't that been one of your things in the last couple of years that we talked about since Ben Roethlisberger talked about? If you got a quarterback, go get him.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh can't use the excuse of, oh, we're eating the picks in the 20s, and so we just can't get a top quarterback. I think that's a lot of crap. And I think the teams I've mentioned are reflective of that, the Bills, the Chiefs, and to a lesser degree, the Ravens. But again, each draft is different, and if a guy falls, then if you feel like you don't have to trade for him, then you may not have to, bid against yourself to go up there and get him if you feel comfortable that he's gonna fall into your lap, which is not a guarantee, but it's a calculation you have to make on draft day.
Right. But I mean, you're talking about such an important position. I mean, if you're sold on the guy and think that's the guy, and he gets two or three spots, and where it becomes draft capital uh, worthy, where you're not selling the whole farm, so to speak. Uh, I would think that if you thought that was your guy and he gets a couple of spots close to you and it's economical to go get him, why wouldn't you go up a couple spots to go get him?
Right. But I would also say it takes two to tango. Maybe that
Sure,
team 2 spots ahead does not want to trade up or trade down because, hey, we don't want to lose our guy. We have our guy here. It's not a quarterback. It's some other position prospect, but we're not moving. And so
sure.
you can't, yeah, I know you know this, but
You
you can't
can't push
always
the
make the
Madden
trade
button. Right,
to happen. Right. Right.
right. Am I enthralled with him overall? No, but uh,
So you would not take him in the first round because to sit there and say you're not enthralled with him does not sound like I would love
well,
this guy to become
uh,
my franchise quarterback in the future.
I think there's a lot of questions about him, and I think that's why the potential of him maybe falling out of the top 9. But it doesn't matter what Dave thinks. I've said time and time again, if this team shows conviction to the point, especially it boils back down to if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you don't have a franchise quarterback, and you're going to have to take a swing at some point to try to get one. And if they showed conviction, whether they take him at 21 because he fell that far, or they go up whatever spots to go get him, I have to respect that at such an important position.
Sure, I was just looking for your personal input and opinion there. Also, Dave, getting some news in and a good call by you. It's finally happened. Derrick Harmon in for a visit today for the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to Joe Reuter, just tweeting this out. 3 visitors today. Derrick Harmon, defensive lineman from Oregon, Marion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, and Ollie Gordon II, the running back from Oklahoma State. Gordon's visit was already reported, so that's not new news. Hampton and Harmon, though, are. And finally, bringing in a first round prospect along the D line.
There he is. And I don't think I called this on the podcast, but last night I noticed that Derek Harmon was in Cleveland yesterday, and I late last night I sent Alex a picture of that, saying, "I wonder if he's going to come to Pittsburgh from Cleveland." So he indeed either drove or flew or whatever, but he's in Pittsburgh. So there it is, finally.
So, been waiting for this one for a while. We'll see if anyone else from the D line top of that class comes in. Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolan, but Harmon, the guy that we've really talked about from the onset of our draft coverage in early mid January, makes a lot of sense there. But look at the quarterback interest the Pittsburgh are showing, and you really wonder, is that going to be the direction? Just when you look at not just Sanders' upcoming visit, but on Jackson Dart, on Jalen Milrow. Tyler Shuck. I mean, they've really done a ton of homework on these quarterbacks. As you said, it is pretty similar to the 2022 pursuit, maybe not quite the world tour that Tomlin and Kevin Colbert took that year, but pretty darn close. And so that really does signal something for Pittsburgh, I would think.
I really feel excited right now.
Just relieved.
Yeah, just more of a relief. Now, will we see Kenneth Grant come in here in the next couple of days or so? I did this. I did a little bit of homework too before we got on this morning. I wanted to see where all Derrick Harmon had been so far through the pre-draft process, and I don't know how teams all report this kind of stuff overall and how much is overall known about who goes where and all. There is a one site that kudos to them, because I would want to try to do this. That's trying to track all of the pre-draft visits around the NFL. And Derek Harmon, prior to today, had a top. Why do they call him top 30? That still don't like that. Is it trying to make it sound like something more official, like you know what you're
Yeah,
talking about or something? I always
sounds
call them.
highbrow.
I call them pre-draft visits, but supposedly he visited the Vikings and then the Browns yesterday, and then the Steelers today. So supposedly this is just the third pre-draft visit for Derek Harmon so far during the process. Supposedly.
Yeah, it's pretty light, but I know that Oregon Pro Day, which I know he did not seem to work out at, was pretty well attended. Higher end officials, some GMs, head coaches, bunch of D line coaches as well. So maybe that, I don't know how other teams operate, but maybe that required less of a visit if you had a lot of guys going out there to Oregon. But yeah, it's not a lot of action there for a first round projected guy like Harmon.
All right, let's bounce back to Sanders and kind of mop this up here. Am I enthralled with Sanders, thinking he could be the next franchise quarterback, the next quarterback in the NFL? No, but I have, like most everybody else, I have missed on quarterbacks in the past, and it's not an exact science overall. See guys like Lamar Jackson several years ago. Why did he slip the way that he did? And look what he's become. Can players drafted in the first round past midway point end up becoming stars in the NFL? Absolutely. Heck, you saw, and it depends on, look what happened with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. The right circumstance came. Would we even know Brock Purdy's name though if injuries and all did not happen in San Francisco?
Probably not.
So sometimes it takes a unique circumstance and a player seizing that opportunity and developing further past his college career, and then they end up become franchise quarterbacks there. I would not be enthralled with it top to bottom, but I would more than understand the reasoning of the Steelers either taking Shedeur Sanders at 20 or any quarterback at 21 and or trading up a couple of spots to go get him.
But there is two parts. There's the part about understanding the motive and then agreeing with the decision on the prospect. Do you believe that Pittsburgh has the right answer when it comes to quarterback? And that also, I think, has to be considered in evaluating, is this a good selection or not?
Well, here's the thing, too. If you're going out and let's assume Aaron Rodgers comes to terms and all like that, and you got Mason Rudolph already signed to the contract. I can't help but keep all the time rolling back in my head what Kevin Colbert said about Ben Roethlisberger. The original plan was for Ben Roethlisberger not to play during his rookie season. Do we believe that? I don't know why we wouldn't believe that. You had Tommy Maddox, you had Charlie Batch. Charlie Batch had a knee injury. Roethlisberger goes up a spot there. Maddox gets injured. What was it, second, third game of the season? In comes Roethlisberger. There's your opportunity, kid. Seized it, and 20 years later, you got a Hall of Famer guy. And you also had a guy that a lot of people didn't think would even fall to the Steelers, right? Back in 2004. So, where what was the line of topic that we're on? I mean,
Would a Sanders or a quarterback be the right pick? What is your point when you sit there and say about Kevin Colbert and a quarterback sitting? Is there a concern about this guy's going to sit, and so is he worth it, or what's kind of the point you're making there?
Oh, I think the fact is that you're not going to sign Aaron Rodgers for 30 million, 28 million or whatnot for him to have a 4-game exit.
Sure, but I don't think Pittsburgh wants to play a rookie. I think they want a veteran to lead this team to get over that playoff hump. I think they would like, and a lot of teams would ideally like that rookie quarterback to sit as opposed to
Right.
being pressed into action right away.
I agree. And uh so then you're delaying the time that you're getting that kid. And let's say Aaron Rodgers plays his entire, the entire 2025 season, then yeah, you get a look at Sanders obviously in practice and training camp and preseason and all like that. But in real time games or whatnot, you don't even start the clock on him until 2026, and then you start the official, unofficial 20-game clock on him to see what you really have on him, right? And then what
Right.
if that's not your guy? Then you've got 2 seasons. Then here we are, 2028, going through all this all again.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't understand the logical
You can't live in
projection
your
for
fears,
Pittsburgh.
right?
Well, that, yeah, but you'd have Rodgers for 2025, Sanders for 2026, and go from there. There would at least be a what's next whenever you get past this year. And Pittsburgh's problem is they go into each offseason with we have no idea who our quarterback is, and drafting a Sanders or whoever a Dart would give you a name there.
Are you excited about Sanders as potentially being a franchise quarterback? Are you more? Are you higher on him? Look, I think he's the second best. I've said I think he's the second best quarterback in the
Right, but
class.
but is he a franchise quarterback? It's all that matters. Whether he's second best or third best or eighth best, is he a franchise quarterback that can be your guy for the next decade and compete with the elite quarterbacks of the AFC? That's the question that matters.
Right.
And I need to watch some more. I watched him more casually, watching just a bunch of Colorado adjacent tape this year. I don't know if I'm there yet. It does not sound like you're there though.
No, but I also need to watch a little bit more on him. But from what I've seen, I don't view him as that next star Super Bowl caliber quality quarterback. No.
Okay. And the concerns are the lack of those elite physical tools. The build's a little bit slender and smaller. What is the real upside, best case scenario?
Sack percentage, that's he's going to take his fair share of sacks, I think, at the NFL level. But on the flip side, he is good against the blitz from what I've seen, and has made some plays under pressure and all like that. I think there's just, from what I've seen, some inconsistencies in his game, but his accuracy's there, and the Steelers have talked about too how much they value accuracy, right?
Sure, sure. And that is the real attractive point with Sanders. It's kind of like for me, a receiver. What is the fundamentals and basics of the position? Receivers got to get open. Quarterbacks have to be accurate. If you're missing that trait, it's really hard to win in any other regard. And that was really kind of one of the pitfalls with Kenny Pickett, because you knew the physical tools with him were never going to be elite of the elite. But Pittsburgh's claim to fame on Pickett, according to Kevin Colbert, was his accuracy was unbelievable, and his accuracy in the NFL was just okay. It was not next level, and without that, there really was nothing that gave him an advantage over other quarterbacks or some elite tool to best defenses with.
And is he mobile? Yes. Can he make plays out of structure? Yes. Does he have NFL pedigree? Yes. Is he supposedly a good leader from things that are written or out there? I haven't seen anything saying otherwise.
Yeah, I would have to dig into it
I
more.
think you just worry about the big personality more than anything. But I mean, heck, you want your franchise quarterback to be cocky, right?
Yeah, you want him to be confident, and there's a line there, but I have not seen Sanders overstep that bounds. He's not nearly as brash as his father is, I wouldn't say.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll keep talking about it. But overall, the takeaways interest in quarterback is very real and really hard to ignore at this point, because they've looked at basically all these guys except for Ward, who's going to go number 1 overall.
Look, I'm once again, I think this boils back to outside of what you and I think. Yeah, if he's the pick, we're going to dissect it, 18 different ways plus 18 more of why he will or won't be potentially a franchise quarterback. But it goes back to conviction of the franchise and needing a franchise quarterback. And you're never going to get a young drafted franchise quarterback if you don't at least attempt to draft a young franchise quarterback.
Sure. So
it's a huge catch-22 at the biggest. Look, and here's the thing: if you make a mistake, you just have to lick your wounds and move on from it. Much like the Steelers, ultimately did with Kenny Pickett, right? You got to take a swing at some point.
Yeah, and they probably aren't the franchise set-you-back moves that they once were because teams are more quickly moving on from mistakes where you don't hang on to that guy for 5 years like you probably used to do where that guy would sit for his first couple of seasons and then, you'd take a couple of seasons to figure out if he could play or not. So, not that it's ever good to miss on a first-round pick, especially a quarterback, obviously, but it may not be the franchise-ruining move that it once was.
To wind things, have we looked at this from all different angles, the pros, the cons, the fears, the wants, the likes? I mean, is there anything left to kind of view on this outside of just watching more tape on him?
I think the last question to ask is, if Sanders is off the board before 21, does Pittsburgh still take a quarterback at 21? Do they take somebody else?
My gut tells me they won't.
Is it getting harder to fight against that, given all the interest in quarterbacks?
It is,
I
especially
agree.
with all the buzz about Dart, then the Milroe being invited to the draft, and the Steelers' interest just generally overall in the position, the due diligence to some degree, the fact that they bringing Sanders in, the fact that they brought Dart in, they brought Shuck in at the Will Howard pro day. What other pro day were they at? With
Milroe, Ewers, Leonard.
Yeah. So there's enough smoke there to think that if they like a guy at 21, they would take him there.
And then part of the question was, okay, if not quarterback, what other first-round guy would they target? And there wasn't a huge list of names that we were coming up with, but now you can put Derrick Harmon back in play, back on that note card, Dave, that we'll come up with. And with that visit today, that was Marion Hampton also in play. They did not have huge attendance for Hampton's North Carolina workout, but now with him coming in for a visit, he's not going to be a third-round guy, so he's a first-round or bust kind of a guy for Pittsburgh. Does that put Hampton in play for a team that is expected to draft a running back?
Oh Lord, yeah, it does. I think you have to consider it. This team has shown that they will draft a running back in the first round before too.
Right, and so I know we both prefer more of a mid-round selection. I think it's probably still the most likely outcome when all is said and done, but want to mention Hampton as well. He's a really productive runner. If you guys have been as productive as he's been the last 2 seasons, he's compact, he's got size, he's got contact balance, can kind of do a little bit of everything for you. I don't know if he's a special back. I don't think the traits are good enough to really justify the 21st overall pick if you're Pittsburgh, but the interest now has ticked up. But going back to Harmon, a lot of Cam Hayward vibes there. He's big, he's long, he's strong, he's versatile. There's maybe a little bit of stiffness in his game, maybe a little bit linear, but a guy that played with good effort, has to finish some plays more, but there's certainly a profile of a Pittsburgh Steelers defensive end if you've ever seen one.
Right, and to roll back to the what the Steelers look for thing, it's because he did do certain things testing wise that left him off the list.
Yeah, the size profile, he checked every box. It was he didn't do, the vert, and I think he just ran. I don't know if he did anything else besides the 40. And so he just missed because of that lack of participation.
All right, and going into the Senior Bowl, we kind of had 4 potential guys I think that we identified as top defensive line prospects that really fit the profile of a first round potential guy for defensive line for the Steelers. And I think it was Mason Graham, Derrick Harmon, Walter Nolan, and Kenneth Grant, right?
I believe so, yes.
All right, so now we finally got one of those guys in the board. Graham, most by many speculation, is already going to be long off the board by the time the Steelers pick. I think it's questionable whether Nolan's a slam dunk first round guy. Could it be scheme? Is he better scheme wise for a 4-man front? There's a little bit some question there. I think Grant definitely fits schematic wise, measurable size, draft pedigree wise, and Harmon definitely fits as well too. So now that Harmon's in the door, it'll be interesting to see if Kenneth Grant comes in the door, and specifically because Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan were unable to go to the Michigan Pro Day week and a half or whatever ago.
Exactly. So it looks like, according to our tracker, we're up to 24 either official or reported visits, excluding the local ones. And so we're getting pretty close to that 30 allotment. And I believe visits will go into early next week. And so hopefully by, say, a week from today, we'll know the entire 30-man list.
This is a huge visit, though, today. Notable.
For Harmon, absolutely. It's been confusing why Pittsburgh hadn't shown that interest. You've been waiting and waiting and wondering. And listen, this team could still take a mid-round defensive lineman. That's still where a lot of the evidence is pointing towards. But putting Harmon on that board is really big.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about some of the visits who came in earlier this week. Dave, that is Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Elijah Roberts, the defensive line edge from SMU. I think you had some good discussions yesterday in our Discord chat, Dave, about Roberts. What is he? Is he an edge guy, defensive lineman? How and where do you view him?
Let's see. First and foremost, what are his measurements? Go over those real quick.
Let me pull it up here. This is going to be off of Draft Scouts. I don't know if he came in a little bit later for the combine, but they have him listed 6'0", 285 with 33 and 5/8 inch arms for Elijah Roberts.
All right. When you turn on the tape with him and you look at the advanced analytics on him, he only played. Oh, I'm gonna have to look back what I wrote in Discord here as far as alignment on him. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick.
And he was 285 for the combine. I just double checked that.
He played just 122 snaps in total in college at either the A or the B gap, first and foremost. Second, just 138 career college snaps, even over the tackle. He had a little over 1,200 college career snaps outside the tackle during his college career. He played, if you look at the tape, he played on his feet a lot. I don't have obviously the number, but now he did play some with his hand in the dirt, but there's a lot of tape with him standing up. I know his profile with his weight is a little bit heavier, but to me, he profiles as a guy that's going to stand up and be an outside linebacker if the Steelers draft him.
Do you think they would use him as a Leal, though? It feels like there are some Leal vibes in terms of a tweener, hand up, hand down, not going to be just a one thing kind of a guy.
Yeah, but how much did Leal play with his hand in the ground in the A and B gap in college?
Well, I think you're not talking about much A gap stuff for this guy. Is he a defensive end? Is he a base defensive end who's playing 3-tech and playing, inside shade on the tackle?
Let me see with Leal real quick.
I mean, I think Leal was mostly of a hand down guy, I believe, but he was flexible.
Outside, yeah, he let's see here, going over what Pro Football Talk on him. He had 77 A gap snaps during his college career, Leal, 249 in the B gap, 219 over the tackle, and 1,058 outside the tackle. So, yeah, I think there's more projection though with even though there's a lot of projection probably with Leal, there's even more projection with Roberts when it comes to lining it up inside the tackle or over the tackle. I will say this: I think he's stout against the run. There's some stiffness with him. He's a good rusher with power. He goes speed to power very well. He's not the ankle flex and bending the corner, certainly not there, and that's why that's one of the key reasons I think why he's going to be probably a early day three or day three type of player here. But yeah, I guess the short answer is there some DeMarvin Leal vibes here? Yeah, sure, I can see that.
And the team is also going to bring in, and I always get the Texas A&M names mixed up, but Shamar Turner, right, later this
Right,
week. And
right.
he's another one of those kind of
Tweener.
hybrid tweener types. That was kind of interesting I'm sorry, Shamar Stewart to bring
Stewart.
in. So I think that was kind of interesting as well. Who's going to be a likely higher end prospect than where Roberts will get drafted, but interesting um, reported visit.
Right. Personally, I view Roberts as a guy that's going to more than likely ask to drop about 12 pounds and stand up.
Okay. And Stewart, I think, is definitely more of a true edge. He came in, he's big and long, but he's 267 pounds. At least that's what he weighed in at. I don't know how much he dropped weight to maybe run faster at the combine, but he seems more of an edge. Kind of wonder what the plan would be with him, considering Pittsburgh is pretty stocked and loaded at edge right now.
I would not be surprised they like him. I would not be surprised if he's like a fifth round selection. I think he was a captain at
Roberts?
SMU.
You're talking
Yeah.
Roberts? Okay.
I think he came over from where did he come over from? Miami? Was it?
I'll double check.
And I think he followed the coach over or something like that. If I got my guys correct here.
He was at Miami 2020 to 2022.
Let me see what I got on him real quick. I think he followed didn't he follow the coach over from Miami to SMU?
I don't know. You'd have to tell me. I didn't
I
write the report.
I think that. Let me see if I got that.
It would make sense. A lot of guys that transfer end up following coaches to go somewhere.
All right. But regardless, I think the Steelers like him. I would not be surprised, fifth, sixth round or whatnot. You see him taken. Oh, here he is. Hold on a minute here. Where is he? Let's see, officially recommitted to the Hurricanes in 2019 under head coach Manny Diaz. He entered the transfer portal in 2022 and rejoined former Hurricanes coach Rhett Lashley at SMU. He took advantage of the extra year of eligibility. A little bit older guy, 23.33 years of age, 6'3", 5'8", 285 pounds.
All right, there you go. So yeah, this is more probably fourth round on him. I would say
Fourth,
early
fifth
day
round.
3.
Yeah.
And it probably will bring in some of those Leal type of vibes.
All right. I could definitely see him being a Pittsburgh Steeler for sure.
Trey Amos, one of the better cornerbacks in this class, has some really strong tape out there. I think our Tom Mead was pretty high on him. And so showing some interest in the quarterback class. Azarie Thomas from Florida State, and now Trey Amos also in for a visit.
I think this is a second round guy. I think maybe you get lucky if he falls into the third round. I don't think he's first round material. He is a little bit longer guy like the Steelers like, a little bit up there in age. I think he's 23, will be over 23 come draft day. They obviously liked him enough to bring him in for a visit. I think he becomes in play if you get a second round pick somehow in this draft, or should he slide into the third round?
All right, fair enough. And so getting that visit list pretty well filled out. Also, the team reportedly will bring in Donovan McMillan, the safety from Pitt. Now, that's going to be a local visit, will not count against the team's allotted 30, but that's going to happen later this week. I think McMillan himself basically confirmed that on Twitter last night.
All right.
And I watched him last night. We'll have a report up on him in a day or two. Highly productive from a tackle standpoint. Real good box safety type. Not great in man coverage, but good zone aware player and a guy that gets physical, can hit, and was pretty active, over 100 tackles his last 2 years at Pitt.
All right. A name to watch maybe later.
All right, Dave, where to from here? Let's stick with the draft. You want to go with my mock draft or my receiver study? I'll give you the choice which to talk about here.
Let's tease the folks and save your extraordinary mock draft for last.
All right, let's talk about continuing our what the Steelers look for study. Talked about the defensive linemen last time, or defensive ends, and now we can talk about the wide receivers and the position Pittsburgh may be looking to draft earlier than later. Study went up yesterday. There were 5 wide receivers who checked every single box. I'll read them off here. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, Daquan Felton from Virginia Tech, Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, Jalen Royals from Utah State, and Isaac Tesla from Arkansas. So a pair of Razorbacks on there, but Higgins, the biggest, literally, and most notable name, he's come in for a pre-draft visit, and he's checking all the boxes, Dave.
All right, talk about a couple that didn't make the list for whatever reason that have been notable.
A lot of it is just guys not participating fully. Matthew Golden didn't make it because he didn't bench, he didn't do the shuttles, he didn't do the jumps. Ted McMillan only ran the 40. Abuka didn't do the bench broad or 3-cone. Savion Williams didn't do the bench broad invert. So a lot of this just comes down to guys who do not fully participate in the draft process, and that hurts them in these studies.
I guess the name that jumped out at me for a bit of a surprise, I guess, is Andrew Armstrong out of Arkansas there. And I wanted to try to watch him this morning, but didn't get to him because the Calvin Anderson contract came up and I had to go down that hole there. Interesting prospect. I'm guessing a day 3, probably a later day 3 guy. I think the biggest knock on him is the 40 time and the actual play speed.
Yeah, I really liked Armstrong's tape. I wrote the report on him. He's big. He's got strong hands. He makes tough catches over the middle. And I thought there was some more burst and flexibility getting in and out of cuts than I would expect from a guy of his size, almost 6'4", 200+ pounds. I do think, and he talked about this at his pro day, has to work on his route running, being a little more efficient with his steps. I think that's going to be important for him. But he was highly productive. He transferred up from a small school to Arkansas State. I think he was at was it Texas A&M Commerce that just changed their name to, I think, East Texas State? But regardless, transferred up, was really productive. A guy that can block, and I thought had some good tape overall. So as you said, viewed as a day 3 guy, but I think there's some value there. My comp to him was Jacoby Myers, and so I think there's potential for a team to get pretty good value on day 3 with Andrew Armstrong.
Looking at some of the career production from him, just 10% out of the slot in college, 90% outside, had a nice average depth of target of 12.1, nice yards after a catch, reasonable at 6.2. He averaged 86 yards per game. In college, very impressive yards per target. What is it? What is YPTPA? Yards per target per pass attempt, I think. 2.95. That's some of the that is the best metric in prospects' career production based on the 25 or so wide receivers that that chart that I've told everybody about, that Football Insights put out on Twitter there. Let's see.
He led the SEC in receiving yards this year, which is no small feat. Only 1 touchdown was kind of weird, but not probably his fault.
His yards per route run also up there at 2.57. So I guess putting this all together here, This is a guy that I think we talked about two others, Antoine Wells Jr. and Dante Thornton Jr. as potential later day 3 wide receivers should the Steelers not address, obviously the wide receiver position early. I think Andrew Armstrong now is on my radar and belongs in a group of 3 players that could potentially be wide receiver targets for the Steelers later in the draft.
The only question is how much interest has Pittsburgh shown in Armstrong? It's been less visible than Thornton and Wells without Azani at that pro day.
Who was at that Arkansas pro day? Do you know?
I can check. I don't think anybody big. If we even end up finding out who
Was that
was
Crockett?
there, it may have been. He's Southern area scout, but it was not a positional coach. It wasn't probably anybody above an area scout. I'll double check though.
Okay. Is there what? He's not going undrafted, is he?
I mean, receivers can be weird. You get a lot of productive receivers who tumble out of the draft each year. That position can be oversaturated, but in a weaker class, I think with his tape, I would not expect him to go undrafted. I think he'll be an earlier than expected day 3 selection.
What about that 4.18 short shuttle and 6.973 cone time? Do you see it on film?
Hold on, where was it at? 4.81, you said?
4.18 short shuttle, 6.973 cone is what you have here.
I mean, are you saying that in a positive way? Because those are pretty good times. I think.
No,
Okay. I wasn't entirely sure what angle you were coming from there. Yeah, I mean, I think there
That's
is some more
fantastic.
quickness and burst and change of direction for him. I think the footwork has to get cleaned up. I think he can take too long to get in and out of breaks, but I think athletically, he moved more fluidly than I would expect for a guy of his bigger frame.
Okay. What else jumps out at you at these other 4 of the 5 that checked every box?
Well, the other Arkansas kid, Tesla, working on pronunciation here. He's gotten some buzz as a kind of late emerger in the media circles. I think he's got some visits coming up around the NFL. Production wasn't huge, but huge guy at 6'3", 214. He real combine or not combine. Actually, no, he did go to the combine, but real workout warrior. 4.43 40, almost 40-inch vert, almost 11-inch broad. Even better, shuttle times 4.05 short shuttle, 6.853 cone. Size, blocking, physicality, that's kind of going to be his game. Felton was pretty quiet throughout his career, just 360 yards for Virginia Tech in 2024. Another big guy, 6.046, 213. Higgins, we've talked about, the bigger Cyclone compared to his teammate, Jalen Knoll, and then Jalen Royals, the smallest guy on the list, but still good size, thickly built, kind of a James Washington vibe in the sense of the build, in the sense of not he's a real good leaper, jump ball kind of a guy. Maybe not going to always run past you, but a guy that can, win those contested moments. I think he's better post catch and is not quite as one note as James Washington was, but I did like Jalen Royals' tape. Had that foot injury late in 2024 that limited him, to end the season and hampered him a bit in the pre-draft process.
All right, with Tesla, I'm looking up because he's not on my chart here as far as alignment. Looked like last year, 304 snaps in the slot, 115 out wide with him. So it looks like he was predominantly slot last year. 2023 with him, we're talking about a 2-year guy here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of split between slot and wide, 361 in the slot, 293 out wide. He also did play some on kick coverage and punt coverage and punt return, a little bit on punt return, 6 snaps in 2023. What did he do in 2024 on special teams? Very minimal kick coverage, kick return, but he had some punt coverage and some punt return snaps. So there's a little bit of special teams value there, I think, with him.
So big slot potential with him. Should mention the 1 box away camp. Jalen Knoll missed his hand by a 1/4 inch, which does not sound like much. He has 8 3/4 inch hands, but Pittsburgh in the Mike Tomlin era has never drafted a receiver with smaller than 9-inch hands. So you wonder if that's a real threshold for the team or not. But obviously, Knoll came in for a visit earlier this month.
All right, and what was the Matthew Golden missed only categories he didn't participate in, right?
Correct. A lot of those guys not on this list just simply did not do full workouts.
All right. I like it. It brought Andrew, it flushed Andrew Armstrong out to the open on me. So I'll try to catch up with you on him. And I think a few others on here as well, too. Felton Royals and Tesla. I like it. I
You
love
know,
these. I absolutely love you doing these.
yeah, they're a lot of fun, and last year they proved to be pretty useful. They had Logan Lee and Ryan Watts in every box checked, and so yeah, that was pretty interesting. All right, just other quick sidebar for receiver because I mentioned on the Monday show that I was going to end up trying to take a real good deep dive into him. Dave, I'm with you on Alec Ayamanor from Stanford. That is really good tape from him. I was really, really impressed, not just with the size, which you figured he'd be a, contested catch, physical type of receiver, but his athleticism, his fluidity within the route. Obviously, the dude blocks his butt off, but I just thought it was really, really good tape overall. Some of the long speed, some of those big plays against Colorado in 2023, outrunning defenders. This is a guy I still have the injury concerns, which I talked about Monday, but from a tape standpoint, his tape is excellent.
Very, very heady guy, right? As far as no, having a route plan and having a good feel for coverages and the way he gets in and out of his breaks and a little versatile as far as alignment goes. Not hugely. I think for his career it was like what was it, 86% out wide, but you can move him around a little bit. Just a heady guy overall. Doesn't take plays off at all from what I saw. Once again, I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but hey, this could be the second best wide receiver in this class, just all around.
Yeah, I have to put together my list. I'll do that soon, but he's gonna be up there for sure. So that certainly screams fit for Pittsburgh because of the blocking. You talk about some of the RBIs that Arthur Smith likes to refer to, guys that can spring runners with those second and third level blocks. That is all over this guy's tape, and so I've not seen much interest in him from Pittsburgh in the pre-draft process, which might be a little disappointing. But the tape is excellent.
And he didn't have a good quarterback situation there either, did he?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford's been a mess. They were 3-9 the last 2 years. They just fired their head coach in a whole scandal situation there. So it was not exactly an offense to thrive in. Then I think as Ross talked about on the last Friday show, the 2023 tape against Travis Hunter, which was very good. It wasn't that performance is not all against Travis Hunter, but he made multiple plays against him, no question about that. And that's going to be really attractive when you're really, you know, besting arguably the top just overall talent in this year's draft class.
All right. Let's see. What else was there? I saw something I wanted to cover, but I can't re-find it right now. Andrew Armstrong, by the way, according to Dane Brugler, he's got him as an undrafted
Mm,
prospect.
I liked him. That's just my personal takeaway there. We'll see what happens. Receivers on day 3 can be different flavors, but I thought there was enough certainly to get him drafted.
All right. I'll try to catch up on him there. All right.
All right,
Where to? Let's talk real quick about the Calvin Anderson contract.
okay, hit me. Those details came out today. What's the word on Calvin Anderson?
We already knew it was a 2-year contract. I kind of wondered if it'd be along the lines of a Ben Skoranek contract. It's actually, I think, a little tiny bit more expensive with him. It totals out at $4 million overall over 2 years. He has a base salary in 2025 of the credited season's minimum, which is 1.17. His base salary in 2026 is 1.5 million. They gave him an $830,000 signing bonus. That's the only guaranteed money in the deal. His cap hit for 2025 will be 1.585 million, and should he stick around in 2026, respectively, his cap number is 2.415 million there. So they're paying him. I mean, look, you got a signing bonus involved in him. It doesn't mean you can't can't cut him, but at this point in time, and because of him being a kind of a carryover, if you will, from last year, what appeared in 4 games into the season with a groin injury, I think on the IR, swing tackle capable. It appears as though, at least until further notice and potentially maybe the draft, we'll see what happens. They think that Calvin Anderson could potentially be their swing tackle in 2025.
And it's funny, we just had mentioned that at the end of the Monday show about that, swing tackle reader question coming in, who was some options out there, and it looks like it will be Anderson. So really, yeah, I think that happened after our last show. So to address it, Calvin Anderson re-signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, had played, I think, 11 snaps last year, but veteran left and right tackle experience. As you said, money maybe a little bit higher than people thought, but hello, O-line tax. Hello, the price to pay for offensive tackles. Everyone gets more than they probably actually are valued and should be worth objectively. But we'll see if they add. But that was a big box to check to at least add some tackle depth. Pittsburgh now has 4 tackles on their offseason roster: Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Dylan Cook, and Anderson. Anderson being that veteran. And so that was not gonna obviously, be the most tremendous tackle depth in the world, but he's gonna be a veteran who can play both spots, and that was important to add and bring back to the roster.
I misspoke there. His cap, he actually came in a little bit cheaper than Ben Skronik. I wondered if it would come in right about the same thing. He actually came in a little bit cheaper. Skronik's got a little over $1 million signing bonus, if memory serves me. He has a 1.71 cap number this year for Ben Skronik, whereas Anderson's cap charge is 1.585 million. So close, but cheaper than even Ben Skronik.
All right, there you go. I don't know if Pittsburgh will be adding any other veteran tackles. I would just say the offensive line depth is not looking as sturdy as it was a year ago. We have to watch the draft, obviously, and that'll impact things, but you really hope this front 5 develops, of course, but also stays healthy.
If they, as the listener wrote in an email we discussed the other day, if they were to do something with another veteran tackle for depth right now, I would guess that would happen at the Monday after the draft, after the first Monday after the draft, and maybe one of the who the listener throw out there, Note Bloom, and I think we talked about a couple others there.
George Fant.
Yeah, if they do anything right now to add depth, I wouldn't expect it to happen before the draft.
That's fair. I agree, especially after signing Anderson. All right, Dave, let's go back to the draft here. In my mock draft version 3.0, the next to last one, my final edition, will come out week of the NFL draft. It will go through my latest update. Now, this was written before the Sanders news and, of course, before the Harmon news today, but I wanted to go a little different direction, some different name at the top that doesn't get mocked to Pittsburgh really at all, but we've talked about a little bit. So at number 21 overall, I went Nick Emanwori, the safety out of South Carolina, brought in for a visit. The RAS, the athleticism fits. Pittsburgh has shown interest in all the top safeties in this year's class. A guy that can play in big nickel, can play in dime. With Deshaun Elliott, a pending free agent, Minkah Fitzpatrick's status not guaranteed past 2025. Pittsburgh really struggling against tight ends last year. They got burned by them, especially across that 5-game losing streak. It does have a Terrell Edmonds vibe, which is not the most comforting thought in the world, but going Emanwori at 21, Dave.
All right, you trying to manifest the safety up high, aren't you?
Just reading the tea leaves. I mean, they've shown interest in all those top safeties. Now, Emanwori is the only one that's come in for a visit, but they were at the pro day for Xavier Watts. They were at the pro day, had dinner with Andrew Makuba from Texas. They were at the pro day with Malachi Starks, and Terrell Austin put him through his workout. That certainly was more than just smoke to me.
Top score of any safety in 35 years as far as RAS, right?
A perfect 10. So literally really cannot be beaten on that.
I understand it. You were way out ahead of this before anybody else. Kept talking about is safety a position this team could potentially address due to kind of interest they had shown during the pre-draft process. I mean, I understand where your head's at here.
Yeah, so I know basically you'll not see him mocked anywhere else in terms of going to Pittsburgh from any other outlet, but wanted to kind of stick my neck out for that. Now, will this change for the final one? Absolutely, it could, but we'll cross that bridge a little later this month. In round three, 83rd overall, sticking with the selection for my last mock, a carryover pick here in Savion Williams from TCU, a chess piece, receiver, running back. I don't know if Pittsburgh would maximize his skill set perfectly, but brought in for a visit. I couldn't find other great third round receivers. I mentioned so much about the historical predictor that, Zach Kazani being at all these pro days seems to kind of lend itself towards receiver going in the top 2 days of the draft. I wanted to be consistent with that for this mock. And so sticking with Savion Williams, who certainly earned some Cordero Patterson, Debo Samuel type of comps.
All right. Probably wouldn't be my first choice there, but I see where your head's at. Carry on.
And then round four, defensive line. I don't like waiting this long for D line. This was again pre-Harmon, but even with Harmon coming in, Pittsburgh has shown a lot of interest in more the mid-round defensive alignment. So I'm going Joshua Farmer from Florida State, who can play, that 3 to 5 tech, long arms. You worry about pass rush productivity, but also brought in for a visit, so the interest there is pretty clear on him.
What's he got as far as ceiling left?
It depends on how he develops as a pass rusher. If he can develop that, then there probably is a ceiling. If not, then you're probably looking at more of a run stopper that fits in a mold, maybe a little bit similar to Daniel Aquale.
All right, 35-inch arms. Wow. He can feed
Yeah,
some people.
a little bit shorter though. And Pittsburgh has generally looked more towards height over length when it comes to defensive linemen, with selections like Logan Lee and Isaiah Loudermilk. But obviously, Farmer in for a visit is gonna. There's a level of interest there.
How old is he? Do we know?
I will check Tom's report. He's usually pretty good about getting birth dates for these guys. Don't have an age. January 17th. Jane Brugler's guide should have it.
Yeah, 22.27.
Okay, so that is acceptable. And also with Eamon Worry, another reason to look at him in round one. He's 21 and change, and Pittsburgh generally likes drafting younger in the first round. Not always. Fartani was an older prospect, an exception. The COVID years kind of messed with things, but they like to get some good youth at the top of the draft. Even Morey checks that box as well.
All right, just while I'm on the page here, Derrick Harmon, 21.72. Kenneth Grant, 21.49. We had a conversation the other day about Alfred Collins, 23.54. So he's a couple years older. Farmer, 22.27. Who else had you talked about?
Tyleek Williams. I don't know if I have the age on him, but you can tell me now.
Tyleek Williams, 22.16.
Okay, and then get the official one on Darius Alexander. I know we basically already know he's what
24.66. He's almost as old as you, Alex.
Yeah, so that's the worry with Alexander. Was at least one of the concerns there. What was the age on him? Was a much older prospect.
They have Darius Alex. No, wait, who was it? Tyleek Williams, 32-inch arms. Was this one of those guys that there was questionable about the arm length?
In terms of like the measurements being inconsistent,
Right.
they were all over the map. I don't know if it was about him specifically, but he's more interior, so I think that's okay.
All right.
All right, back to my
Carry
mock
on.
here. 5th round, going running back, a little bit later than ideal, but deep running back class. Another pre-draft visitor in Jaden Blue from Texas, who's small, but home run speed, true, ran on the 4.2s at his pro day. He's true 4.2 speed on the field. And so Pittsburgh wants playmakers. Jaden Blue can be a playmaker.
What was he the one with the fumbling situation?
He's one of them. He had a stretch of fumbles. I don't think it was as bad as Tootin. I think he's talked about Blue has in his left hand. He's been weaker there than with his right hand. And so I think he had a stretch last year where there were a couple of fumbles, but you kind of trade that off to, I guess, kind of the big playability. He's kind of like Kenneth Gainwell, a better version, where great in space, more home run ability, but really good receiver. The pass pro probably is not as good as where Gainwell is at, but that would kind of be the role for him.
Let me ask you, let me interrupt your mock draft. After you push the button, would you maybe have gone running back in round 3 and wide receiver in round 5? Flip the two positions?
In my head, I think that makes a lot more sense. But then I've talked so much about receiver top 3 rounds, it would have felt hypocritical to not have a receiver there, at least for this mock. So that's why I kept it the way it was. The hardest thing for me was leaving a quarterback out because there has been so much smoke on a quarterback that it's hard to not include one in a mock draft.
All right, round 6.
Going some non-visitors here in Q Robinson, the edge from Alabama. Frankly, he may go higher than this. I'm still looking at most mock drafts, putting him in a square day 3 camp, but I think he probably will go higher than the 6th round, 185 overall. Came on strong in 2024. He's got good length, really good special teamer too. He's really been dominant there and played there even as a starter in 2024. So I think Pittsburgh will still could look to add edge depth late.
All right, for whatever it's worth, category, Dane Brugler has him as a 5th to 6th round selection. Excuse me, on Q Robinson. Let's roll back real quick. I mean, they brought in Elijah Roberts. They've looked at the A&M kid. I know they have Watt. I know they have Highsmith. I know they have Herbig. I know they re-signed Jeremiah Moon. But are you getting a sense that an edge will be drafted day 3, somewhere within there?
I don't want to say it's a sense. I just think Pittsburgh likes to reload with pass rushers because it is such a vital part, the engine of this defense. And if you look at some of the Andy Weidel drafts over his time with Philadelphia, he was not making the picks, but just watching how the Eagles kind of built their roster. They like some of those late 3 pass rush flyers to really just keep the cupboards full.
All right. I'm getting a sense they might go edge at some point in day 3 here.
Yeah, I certainly would not be surprised by it. I don't know if I'm expecting it, but I think it would make a lot of sense. It will be consistent with how the team wants to build out their roster. Then finally, in the 7th round, 229 overall, Elijah Huzzie, the cornerback from North Carolina, inside-outside experience, going to profile more of a slot guy at the NFL level. Can also do punt returns, although I probably would not expect him to do so in Pittsburgh, but a guy that's also had some big games against Pitt, and you wonder if that would maybe catch Pittsburgh's attention.
All right. Haven't watched him.
Yeah, we have the report up on him and he had 6 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks last year. So a guy that can make some plays, and really kind of create some big playability. I think Pittsburgh would be attracted to.
All right. Obviously, no offensive lineman in this. Obviously, no quarterback in this. What is your biggest regret not fitting in a quarterback?
Yeah. Now again, this was pre-Sanders. This was written pre-Sanders. It was published after the fact, but you look at all this smoke at quarterback. You just sit there and say they're going to do all this homework on the position and not draft somebody, knowing that Aaron Rodgers, even if he signs, it's a 1-year thing. Rudolph's not a starter. They're going to kind of put themselves without any sort of even internal option for next year. It's a difficult place to live for Pittsburgh.
All right. In all 3 mock drafts, have you had a safety in all 3?
I'd have to check. I had Waller in my last one. Did I have a safety in my first mock draft? Let's look through. I did. I had a safety in the 7th round of my first one. Yes.
All right.
So yes.
You remain firm in the category that safety is going to be included in this class, right?
I mean, if it's not at the top, then maybe it won't happen. But I just made the point that Pittsburgh was showing a lot of interest in the top 4 safeties in this year's class, and that tells me something.
Okay. All right. What was what's have you dared read the comments yet?
Yeah, people hate it. People do. They were like the last one. They don't like this one. So we're kind of back to the normal place. But these are always what I think the team will do, less of what I will do, and it's all good.
All right. I understand where your head is at with this overall. So, all right. Where to from here?
Anything else from the Beast? That is Dane Brugler's draft guide. For my money, the best out there on the web. Any other takeaways? And they were both. I haven't even really gotten to crack it open yet, and you're kind of just getting to start digging through it. But you said you wanted to kind of mention it today. Anything else you want to talk about from it? Any guys you want to research? Feel free.
Yeah. I think went down to the top 100 prospects on him. He's got Jackson Dart as his QB3, 49th rated prospect. One spot below him is Tyler Shuck at QB4. He has Sanders. Where's Shedeur Sanders at here?
2.
No, he's got Shedeur Sanders. I'm trying to find it here. Oh, 34th overall, quarterback number 2.
Okay, quarterback number 2. So read off his like top 5 quarterbacks. I assume it goes Ward, Sanders, Dart, Shuck.
It goes Ward, Sanders, Dart, Shuck. Where's QB5 here? Milrow at 73rd rated prospect overall.
Okay, so there's a pretty good gap from
Right.
at least because who 4 Shuck is rated what overall? 40 something.
50th.
Okay, 50th, and then into the 70s on Milrow at number 5. Where does he have Will Howard?
Does he have Will Howard he does not have Will Howard in the top 100 as far as positional rankings go. He has Will Howard 8th behind. He's got Quinn. I'll read off his top 10 quarterbacks in the order: Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milrow, Quinn Ewers, who he has a 3rd round grade on, Kyle McCord, 3rd to 4th round grade, Will Howard, 4th round grade, Dylan Gabriel, 4th round grade, Riley Leonard, 4th to 5th round grade.
All right,
That's
so
his
I'm
top
higher
10.
on Howard than a lot of people, including Dane Brugler.
All right. And it rolls back to kind of wondering about Jalen Milrow, and being a draft invite.
Is that confirmed? It's because I know Ian Rappaport was uncertain. ESPN, not Schefter or anybody, made a reference to him being an invite today. Do we have confirmation? I know the NFL will release that soon, and this will all kind of be taken care of. But do we have 100%?
I don't know.
Invited?
I don't know if we have an official list yet. I don't think we do.
Okay. So, but has anyone else said it? Not that I'm doubting Brugler, but I'm just looking for any other confirmation on that.
I have not seen any.
Okay, I do want to check that. But if he is invited, then that's at minimum, at worst, I should say top 40 on Milrow.
Okay.
Because he's not going to be the 70th overall pick getting an invite to the draft.
You would think not.
I don't know. Has anybody what is the latest somebody's been invited to the draft and been selected?
Oh, I'd have to
That'd be
research
interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't expect anyone to have an answer. Was it Keon White a couple years ago? He had to wait in the day 2, I think. I think he was an invite. He went 46th overall. I believe he was a draft invite. That's just one random name that popped into my head.
All right. We'd have to research that, I think.
All right. Where to from here? Where does Brugler have some of these running backs? I want to have just a brief running back discussion today. I mean, I assume he has Shenty 1, probably Hampton 2. I think from there it kind of gets pretty wide open in terms of where people will start slotting these prospects.
He's got Genty 1, O'Marion Hampton 2, Caleb Johnson 3rd, Travion Henderson 4th, Quishon Judkins out of Ohio State 5th, Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee 6th, Jordan James out of Oregon 7th, RJ Harvey 8th, Trevor Etienne 9th, and Brashul Tootin 10th.
What does he have DJ Giddens from Kansas?
He has him 13th overall with a 3rd to 4th round grade.
Okay. Well, yeah, it is a deep class, and so 13th might sound low, but in a class like this, it's not the death sentence it might sound like. I like Giddens' tape. I was watching him. I thought the word that kept coming to mind was slalom, just the way he kind of is able to cut laterally, make guys miss in short, tight areas. The long speed may not be what he ran. I think he ran in the 4.4s. I don't know if that's really evident on tape, but I thought some of that short area quickness. He's not LaShawn McCoy. He's much bigger, different style of running back, but kind of had that vibe in terms of just making guys miss in a phone booth.
He does have Cam Scatabo 12th, Giddens 13th, Ollie Gordon's got down at 14th, Devin Neal 15th, and Damian Martin is 16th. Interesting.
Yeah, but those are still, it could be like a 13th overall running back and carry a 3rd and 4th round grade, speaks to the depth and the talent of this class. Because I bet you if you look at last year's draft guide, maybe you can even do that for a second if you have the
I'd have to
resource.
pull it. It's going to take me a
All
minute.
right, well, don't worry about it then. But I'm betting if you look at the number 13 running back last year in terms of his draft guide, I bet you that guy did not carry a 3rd or 4th round grade.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have further running back conversation probably on the Friday show. I know we probably meant to have it today, but there's a lot to cover today.
No, it's all good there. All right, Dave. Anything else to discuss? That was basically, I believe, all that I had. If there's additional things to talk about, feel free. If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, from Bill Pulaski. After listening to the terrible podcast with the wide receiver rankings, an immediate thought came to mind. Where would you rate Roman Wilson amongst this year's draft class were he to be a part of it? Is there any concern with taking a wide receiver like Golden in the first that Wilson, barring someone else getting injured or traded, would likely have a difficult time getting a hat on game days? Or is it simple as adding more weapons without concern for how it impacts anybody else at the position who may still be developing? He says, I have Wilson slotted as 6th on the depth chart were Golden the selection or some other high pedigree pick, because Wilson also seems to be limited in what he could provide on special teams compared to Austin and Skoronski. Good question, Bill. That's a very well thought out topic question, and something for us to discuss here. I think Roman Wilson probably still a 3rd round selection in this draft.
It's a weaker receiver class this year than last year, so in theory, would bump him up. It's always hard to complete that comparison game. Our scouting report last year gave Wilson 8.1 grade, and so we'd have to try to see how that matches up with receivers and how they've been graded this year. But I don't know the situation. It may go up a little bit, but I don't think it would go up dramatically.
All right. What does it mean for his ranking in the room? Should say a Godwin be drafted?
Godwin?
I mean,
Golden?
Golden.
I mean, I think, no matter what receiver you put in there, if one does get drafted sooner than later, and assuming Pickens stays, Wilson will get a chance to show himself this year, but I just have a hard time seeing how he's going to get consistent reps and targets as a number 4, number 5 receiver in an Arthur Smith run-heavy offense. My expectations for Wilson right now are pretty tempered, pretty low.
I guess, a lot would have to be decided what ultimately happens with Pickens, but assuming Pickens, stays, not traded, he does make a good point, because Roman Wilson not a huge special teams guy, and Skoronski is. If you were to dress, I guess, long story short, is there a chance that Roman Wilson could be without a helmet for some games?
Potentially. I mean, when it comes to Roman Wilson, I just want to see this guy on the field. We just have not gotten to see him. We got to see him in a couple of practices last year, most of which were padless until he got hurt, or literally the first. It was 7 shots in the first pad of practice, and so we just have not seen this guy in pads. Saw him for 5 snaps on the field his rookie season. I just want to watch this guy, get to know this guy, get a feel for what he can offer, and kind of go from there. But just looking at the construction of the team right now, I'm not seeing a real angle for him to see heavy offensive role in 2025.
All right. I would agree. Nathan Casey writes in, do you think the draft is impacting Aaron Rodgers' signing? I wouldn't think that he could dictate who they take early, but if you were him, why would you sign up for one more year knowing they aren't throwing every high pick they have at winning now? More offensive weapons or players to stop the run to give him a better title chance. He says, similarly, if the Steelers believe Tyler Warren is a perennial all-pro caliber tight end, and he were were to be there, couldn't they take him? If that happened, wouldn't that hasten the departure of GP? That for sure means more 2 and 3 tight end sets or 2 tight end sets with a fullback with DK. There also, GP isn't going to want that offense in a walk year. So first and foremost, look, I think that the conversation with Aaron Rodgers is, look, it's 1 year. I guess he's asking the old Ben Roethlisberger thing. I need more weapons. Why are you drafting a quarterback when this is my 1 year to make something happen? And would that impact him signing? And could he wait till after the draft? That's one topic of conversation. Second, about Tyler Warren. Man, if Tyler Warren falls down to year 21, you run people over trying to get that card up, I think.
What is the plan to get Warren on the field? I'm not opposed to it, but like there's got to be a plan with the 3 tight ends that Pittsburgh has with Pickens, with DK Metcalf, with the run game.
I don't know. You just try to get him out on the field.
That seems like a bad plan for a first round pick of like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, but he's a talented dude, man.
Yeah, I don't deny that at all. I'm not even saying you shouldn't take him, but I think there's got to be an idea of how we're going to use him.
It's messy for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have to worry about that, though.
Yeah. With Rodgers, maybe, I don't know what's in his head. I know there was frustration in Green Bay. They never took receivers early. The last, I think, early round receiver they drafted was like Javon Walker. And then, of course, they took Jordan Love when it felt like, okay, they're so close. They went to the title game. They're a piece away. Then they draft a quarterback instead. I'm sure Rodgers didn't love that. But if you're Pittsburgh, you just can't be dictated by this guy. It's a 1 year thing. It's a short-term rental. They added DK Metcalf. I mean, what's going to be a better addition for Rodgers than trading for DK Metcalf? And listen, Rodgers, I need to do the study on it, but rookie receivers rarely have much success with Aaron Rodgers because Rodgers has high demand and perfection, and guys got to be on the same page. And so rookies really don't generally make an impact right away. So if you're Rodgers, I don't know how you could sit there and be mad about that because your weapon is DK Metcalf, who's going to be more productive and better than any receiver Pittsburgh could have drafted instead.
Okay. Deshaun Campbell writes up, sup guys, I have a bone to pick, and I think I'm starting to understand why players are not doing combine anymore. He says, I'm seeing the constant overhype of a guy like Matthew Golden because he ran a fast 40. He's a good route runner and he's fast, but what about production actually on the field? He says he's a guy who has one season over 600 yards and has never reached 1,000. He was viewed as an early second, then ran a 40. Now he's wide receiver 1 or 2. He wants to think is Golden getting pushed up for the mere fact how quick his 40 was.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the thought. I went through a lot of Golden tape last night. I came away super impressed, but I know the concern is it's a limited sample size. Not only just the 1 year, but it was like really down the stretch in the playoff run that Texas had where Golden really emerged. But, is that a product of when he was in Houston before? I don't know exactly if that was a concern over the offense or the scheme or the quarterback play or the coaching or the million factors there. I mean, it's not like any Texas receiver had huge numbers. He was close to 1,000 yards this year. He was 13 yards away, so we're kind of splitting hairs. He led the team in touchdowns, led the team in receiving yards. How many snaps did they have? How many blowouts did they play? Were you aren't playing in the fourth quarter, not able to, have those stats padded? I mean, the first like 6 games of the season were basically blowout victories for Texas, and so if he had played a bunch of competitive games, would his stats look a whole lot better? There's a whole discussion probably to be had about that. So I get the thought. I just think for guys not doing all the testing is maybe it matters less for some. Some of the top end guys don't have to. You kind of look at how condensed the draft calendar is getting with the playoffs pushing things back, and then right after that is all-star games and draft prep, and it's just a lot on a guy's plate and you want to put down good times, don't have a bad time out there. So it's probably a lot of factors to go into these guys not fully working out, mostly knowing that they don't really have to.
And 2022, he missed 2 games with a rib injury, and in 2023, he missed the final 3 games with turf toe, so that impacted, obviously, his production.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So, I mean, I get it on Golden, believe me, but just watching the tape, I mean, I was watching it last night going, this is a real strong, precise route runner, and I'm always big on the route runners, and Golden, to me, is one of the Who was the second? Who else are the other route runners in this class that are top end guys? A lot of these bigger guys that come in after that are Luther Burden, who's athletic and I like a lot, but he's not a precise route runner. Just not how he was used at Missouri. What is Brugler? What does he rank the top receivers in this year's class? Is Golden one? Is Tetaroa McMillan one? What comes after that, Dave?
He's got goes Tet McMillan, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden. He's got third, Mecca Buka fourth, Jalen Knoll fifth, Jaden Higgins sixth, Jalen Royals seventh.
Nice.
And Jalen Royals once again was on your 5 guys that checked every box, right?
Him and Higgins, yes.
Trey Harris, 8th, Jack Betch, 9th, Isaiah Bond from Texas, the other Texas kid, 10th, Alec Ayamanor, 11th, and then goes on from there. Savion Williams, 14th. How about some other notable guys here? Dante Thornton Jr., 23rd. He's got a 5th to 6th round grade there. Tesla, we talked about earlier in the show, 24th, 1 spot behind Thornton.
Wells.
Wells, where's Wells? 43rd, undrafted grade.
Okay.
And Andrew Armstrong, another guy we talked about, I think we already talked about, 38th on the list. Got him ranked higher than Wells, also a free agent addition.
Can I make you a gopher here with Ayamanor? Can you, because Brugler's really good about sussing out injury history. I like to think we're pretty good at it too, but can you go through his report and note on any potential injuries he has down for Ayamanor?
Sure. Let me scroll on down.
I know he's had knee issues.
Once again, we're reading this off from Brugler, and it's only fair that there's one reason to subscribe to The Athletic. It's for this thing.
Can you buy it separately too? Do we know?
I did not see that this morning. No? I don't know. Let's see. What are we looking for here? Injuries.
Ayamanor, his injury history. Usually, I don't know exactly where he notes it, but often does. Maybe on the negative section. I don't know if he has a specific place for injuries. It might just get kind of filtered throughout the report.
He's got forced to redshirt during his first year at Stanford after tearing the ACL, MCL, and meniscus in his knee. Missed most of his senior year of high school with a torn PCL.
Anything else? Is that the 2 he's got listed there?
I think that's all he's got listed here as far as I can see.
What our report showed. I mean, that's not good, obviously, just off the top. He had an abdominal injury in 2023. And then, we're seeing the ACL. So the 2022 injury was ACL, MCL, and meniscus?
Forced to redshirt during his first year at Stanford, which would have been 2022 after tearing the ACL, MCL, and meniscus in his knee on August 2022.
Okay, so pretty severe knee injury there. So that wasn't our report, though. We had the PCL in high school. So kudos to our Jim Hester for getting all that and even adding in the abdominal injury, which Brugler apparently does not have noted there. So he's been healthy in the last couple of years, which is good. I mean, that is good. But you do worry, are there any long-term concerns about that knee issue? Because I don't know why this guy would be rated so low. I think the tape is really good otherwise.
I enjoyed the tape on him. I really did. And last 2 years, he's had the production 62 for 1,013 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2023. And 2024, 63 for 831 with 6 touchdowns. 6 drops in each of those years.
Okay, so the drop's a little bit high. Does he do player comps, Brugler? Or is that just maybe whenever he feels a good comp? Does he do one for each prospect?
I'm trying to look in here to see if anything jumps out.
I know some people love player comps. I don't mind them. I like being able to give a reader an easy window into a visual of what this guy is like.
I don't see anything in here off the top.
Okay. All right, just wondering.
All right, I think we got through a good portion of emails here. Let me see if there's Did I hit that one on the working theory? Oh, okay. From Jason Chadwell. I have a new working theory as we inch closer to the draft, although I think it would be a mistake by not taking a defensive line in round 1. It feels more and more likely they will take a nose tackle type in the 3rd round, roll with Hayward and Benton as base ends, and live with the depth they have already acquired this offseason, leaving them able to draft the best player available at 21, wide receiver, safety, or maybe even quarterback. He says, how comfortable would you be if they waited to the 3rd round for a nose tackle type, since they won't be an every down player and still have Adams as the backup nose tackle? I mean, it's not ideal. Could you envision that something like that happening if they did not go defensive line in the 1st round? They almost would have to. It would feel like, right? I mean, I don't know. Alex had brought up Farmer. What round do you have Farmer? 3rd?
4th in my
4th?
mock, but he's in that 3rd, 4th round range.
I mean, you're talking about more kind of questionable guys. I mean, you would still probably be looking ahead to 2026 for that next stud, you know, the heir apparent to Cam Hayward, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely true. For the short term, the vision would be, okay, you draft the nose tackle, you can wait a little bit on that because he's not going to be valued as highly, not going to be needed to play as much. You kick Benton out at defensive end, and that kind of gets you through 2025. But then you're still going to have to look at that long-term replacement starting in 2026 for Cam Hayward. So I do see the vision. It does make sense to me, but it is a little more Band-Aid than hopefully long-term solution. But I get it.
Yeah, I get it as well too, and I don't think it's impossible the way he lays this out here. You can see the Oregon kid they brought in. What's the defensive tackle they just brought in?
Jamari Caldwell.
Yeah, you could see something like that, right?
Yeah, I think that if you took that guy in the 3rd, 4th round and he was your plugger, then yeah, that is a sensible way to go about it if you're not taking defensive line in the 1st round.
Yeah. Jason, I mean, look, we don't know what if they try to get back in the 2nd round for anybody or anything as well too, but as is right now with not having a 2nd round pick, I don't think we can completely rule out your new working theory that you presented.
Sure. And again, it was kind of a little similar to mine, depending on where you want to play Farmer. But yeah, I think it's a good idea.
We'll take one more here from Tony. I have been a listener since a year or two before Alex joined. He says, this is my first email with Jens. All right, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
I share some of your concerns about the lack of apparent interest by the Steelers with the top defensive line prospects. One of the things you mentioned is their focus on day 2 and day 3 talent. He says, Omar Khan has stated that they would like to add an additional day 2 pick. I'm thinking he may have a couple of options in place and they will trade down. He says, I know, weird, right? If they were to trade down, they would focus on guys like Alfred Collins in late 1 or with a 2 they may acquire. What do you think the chances are that they trade down, that a trade down happens this year? All right, Tony, first and foremost, where you been? Great first email here. And you apparently wrote this before Harmon came in, so you get a mulligan there. I think it is notable that once again that Derrick Harmon came in today, but I get your drift here, and I think this plays back into kind of the last email kind of we got as well too. And Alex and I, or at least I have been kind of wondering, will this team somehow get another top 100 pick, whether it be early 3rd or in the 2nd, Alex? And I know we don't mock or predict those kind of things, and it's a lot of speculation there, but I think there's a chance that by the time round 3 ends, that the Steelers have 3 picks on the board.
Hey, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for team trade down in the right scenario to get that additional capital. It's just hard to predict, like you said, Dave, depending on the board, depending on offers. And, the history is just that, but one trade down since 2000. Now it's a new regime, newish regime at least, under Omar Khan. I think they're more flexible than what Kevin Colbert was, but it's just really, really hard to say. Would it shock me if Pittsburgh traded down? No, it would not. But you just don't know until you're basically in that moment.
Right. I don't think it's crazy to want or to at least open up the plausibility of them trading down a couple of spots in round 1 and pick up I don't know, second or early third or whatever within that, then if they still don't take an a defensive lineman in round one after moving down, then yeah, I think Collins or Farmer or something like that. A little bit later, who would be in there in round two that would really get you excited as far as defensive linemen go?
Well, I think Collins is the one name to mention, as Tony did. I think Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, another one that I think would really fit Pittsburgh well.
All right. All right, Tony, good first email there. How about we end on that, Alex?
Yeah, let's end on Tony's email.
All right, we will get back after this. We'll try to talk more about running backs, I think, on the Friday show. Hopefully, we'll continue to get the steady stream of pre-draft visitors to talk about. Maybe there'll be another top defensive lineman like Kenneth Grant in that group. Maybe Walter Nolan. We'll have to see where it goes from there. But we'll see what Pat McAfee has to say on his show later tonight. Anything that happens Steelers related that's worth talking about will be up on SteelersDepot.com over the course of the next couple of days. Alex, you sound good today.
Do I? I'm
yeah.
a little struggling here at the end. I should sound a whole lot better for Friday. I got to follow up tomorrow, so
All right.
should be much better. I'll have a Morgan Freeman voice, I think, for Friday.
All right. I look forward to it. All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. I really enjoyed today's show. I like talking about those, what they look for. And we had a good Sanders quarterback discussion today, kind of out of nowhere. That was good and healthy. Let's see. If you want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. Follow the directions that way. Emails theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.